Hey ladies and gents, it's Zembak, and we are going to talk about the SPG changes, specifically the stun changes to artillery. Now, before anybody loses their shit, which they do every time I make an R video, somebody gets mad about artillery, whether they're for or against. I don't care, guys. Look, I play artillery. I play every tank class in the game. I have 30 of my tanks, of 438 tanks are artillery, right? I get it from both sides. I understand every complaint, everything that you're going to say below. I get it, right? I've been one-shotted by artillery. I've one-shotted tanks with artillery. I understand the frustration that artillery causes. However, my biggest thing is about this new change that they're making to the stun mechanic is I don't think, for one, the stun mechanic was a very good idea. All right? I made a video right after 9.18 when they changed it the first time about how stun was going to be extremely frustrating for players. And I did a little survey. I talked to a bunch of my clanmates, talked to friends that play the game, and they've all agreed pretty much is that, hey, if we got rid of stun, this game would, I could handle playing against artillery, right? It's not as bad. Typically you're only going to get hit for 300 or 400, maybe 500 once in a while. If you're a lightly skinned tank, you're pretty much fucked anyway. But for the most part, if you have anything with more than 50 millimeters armor, Arty's not going to be near as ridiculously stupid as it was before 9.18. Now, when 9.18 changes it took away its AP, the heat rounds, stuff like that, armor piercing, that would cause the big damage when they hit because they would actually penetrate the armor. And you could literally, like I said, lose your E100 in one shot. Took that away. They dropped the number of artillery to 3 per battle. I still think that should be dropped even lower. I think it should be at 2. I'm looking this at it from a tanker's point of view, not as an artillery point of view. The problems I have with artillery, dropping it to 2, and I also think there should be some sort of limiter on, tier 10 shooting at tier 8s. I don't think there should be that big of a spread. 357 matchmaking has kind of fucked that up, but artillery should somehow be limited to, instead of bombing away at something that's 2 tiers lower. It's just super annoying. So, but with that said, I think the biggest factor, and they've brought it up in the new patch or the new changes that they're going to make too, is still the stun. Why? Because when an artillery shell hits a tank, you're going to get 4 possible damage, I guess is what you get. But you're going to get to the actual damage to the HP. You're going to get a crew module damage. You're going to get possibly a module damage to the tank, or crew member, a module to the tank, and then you add in the stun, right? So if it kills your loader, breaks your ammo rack, and then you get a crew stun, guess what that does to your reload time, right? You can fix a lot of that stuff, because they did give you reusable consumables, which is still great, but still 90 seconds if you're just using the cheap ones is still a long time to be sitting there waiting for something to get broke. So yeah, after all this, asking people what they thought and all that kind of stuff, pretty much consensus is that stun really needs to go. It is ridiculously over, incapacitates your tank to the point it's just like, it's not fun. It's frustrating, especially if there's more than one artillery, and especially if all 3 of them decide to pick on you. You're hitting multiple times. So that was one of the changes that are going to be made, is that every time you get with artillery, after the first initial stun, it's supposed to have it. It's supposed to make it less, so the next one isn't going to hit you for another 23 seconds. It's going to be, or 22 seconds. It's only going to be 11 seconds. Still doesn't matter. It's still not taking away the fact that stun, the incapacitation it does to your tank, added on to the other things it does to your tank when it hits, is just too much. And like I said in the very first video that I made 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, whenever 9.18 comes out, I literally said it's beyond. It's too much for regular tankers to be frustrated constantly with the stun. So with that said, we're going to switch over to the artillery argument, because most artillery players will tell you the same. Will go like, "Wow, without that big damage I used to get, what do I get? Without the stun?" Well, once again, with the faster reloads, the more accurate firing with the shell of the artillery in general, you should still be able to by far get more consistent damage than you did before. Before artillery was kind of a feast and famine. You had games where you had 6,000 damage. The next game you probably had 1,000, right? With the changes to artillery they made in 9.18, you get a far more consistent damage. So I really don't think the stun was ever really going to be that big, ever be that big of an influence. People said, "Well, you got to have that stuff, or the artillery can't influence the game." And I'm going to show part of a clip here where I still think that's bogus. Artillery can still be involved in the game and still contribute to the game without the stun factor. So with that said, I'm gonna bring up some stuff here, and people are like, "Well, can we just get rid of artillery in general?" Sorry, guys, that's not gonna happen. I don't think. I'm 99% sure wargaming will never get rid of artillery. Too many people play it. It's like 92% or something like that. Some absurd number of the number of people that play artillery or have played artillery. It's very high, right? And they're not gonna reload. They're not gonna give everybody all the free XP they've had from the grinding out the artillery lines. I just don't see it happening. So people saying, "Well, we just need to get rid of artillery." No, it's not going to happen. So saying it over and over again, just no. It's not going away. So it's something we have to deal with if we want to continue to play the game, or we just don't play the game. It's entirely up to you. However, like I said, the stun factor in general just needs to be completely taken out of the game. Like you said, with the damage, the crew, module damage, and then added on the stun, something's got to change there, because that just equals up. Put those all four together, equals up to just a huge amount of frustration for tankers. So I'm going to bring up some gameplay for you guys, and we're going to talk as we play the game. Some short clips too for the tankers that think that somehow artillery just can't do it anymore, right? I've heard that so many times from artillery players. Well, it's just not doing the damage. I just can't get as much damage as I used to, and all that kind of stuff. Well, like I said, you're going to get more consistent damage. That's the kind of the big key here. So saying that if you can't influence a battle because the artillery doesn't hit as hard as it used to, I just don't think you're trying as hard as you possibly could. It's all about aiming, and it's all about picking the right targets and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm trying to be diplomatic in this approach of addressing not just artillery, just the players that don't play artillery, that hate them, and artillery players as well. So I'm going to bring up some gameplay for you guys to check out kind of what I'm talking about. Hey, ladies and gents, we are back with some of the gameplay that I was talking about in the garage. In the first part here, this is going to be kind of, with the whole arty thing that you cannot influence the battle unless you had stun, right? You just don't get the damage, you don't get that blah, blah, blah. No, you can still do a lot of damage in artillery, even with the, gimped changes they made with artillery. You're still able to make the big shots. You are still able to do 1,000+ damage to a lot of the light skin tanks. There's a ton of light skin tanks running around that you're able to do the big damage with. It's far more consistent, as an artillery player. With this, since 9.18, it's far more consistent damage than you had before. RNG was oftentimes not always kind, but when you did hit, you did get a lot bigger numbers. However, with the 9.18 changes and the lowering of the actual damage that a tank can do, it kind of pissed off a lot of artillery players. They were used to having these big damage games sometimes, and they didn't think that since they lowered it, that they would no longer be effective in battle. I just think that's just no. I really don't. It's entirely about what you're shooting at, whether or not you're hitting, that kind of thing here. So, like I said, in this little clip here, I'm just, and this was only done over a 2-day process. 2 or 3 days, I think I played artillery with some of the clan mates and stuff like that, and some solo games, just to get some, artillery footage, right? And a lot of the stuff I'm doing in these videos, I do on a regular basis. It's not impossible to pull off 3 or 4K in an artillery, right? Gore medals are, get the right map and all that kind of stuff, you're still very much able to put out actual damage, without the stun factor. So I'm going to bring up this game here. Excuse me. This was an M5355 game. I'm playing with Insen. He's in a AMX 1390, and we are a 3. This is a tier 10 battle, 5 10s and 10 9s. And the reason I brought this up here, we're going to actually talk about why artillery can still be not only influential in a game, but somewhat needed. All right, people are like, well, there's no reason to have that in the game. Yeah, but here's the problem. Type 5s, Type 4s, Object 268 version 4s, Super Conks, the new T95 reward tanks they gave away, those tanks can absolutely dominate a game, depending on who's playing them. Without artillery, how do you, as a player, how do a lot of players in the game are going to be able to deal with that, right? Artillery does balance out some things. Specifically, what we're talking about here with the Tortoise, like I said, 268 version 4, the 430U. With artillery, those tanks are in strong positions. Artillery does kind of balance them out here. I don't have a really good team on my side, other than myself and Insen. We don't really have that greatest team right here. You can even tell by obviously where one of our heavies are currently at on the other side versus what we have on this side. Being an artillery in this situation, I'm able to, I shouldn't say rebalance, but it gives me the ability to influence the game outside the fact that, I'm not hitting as much. So yes, there is an argument to be made that artillery does have a reason to be in game. It counteracts a lot of these tanks that have come out lately here. So we're going to put a nice shell right up to Super Conk's butt as he's running away here. Insen dies. Unfortunately, I was not able to save him. But you get what I'm saying here, right? So we're going to look at some of the stuff here, like we're going to start hitting some of these tanks from the front, and you're going to see what I was talking about with the frustration part of it, at least from a tanker's point of view, right? Some artillery people will say, well, there's places on the map that, that's already safe. No, there's not. If I wanted to, I could hit any part of this map by getting the right angle here, right? So we're going to drop one here on the Tort, and we're going to see what comes up here. 2 critical damage and 430 damage plus the stun, right? So he's got 2 critical damage, obviously something, and there's probably a chance I might have even nailed a crew member. He's suffering right now, right? I get the fact he lost the crew, the critical damage, but with that extra stun to it, just didn't help. So we're going to pull back over here. Now the stun with 4 tanks, possible actual damage to whatever tank I hit is going to be a little bit ridiculous here. So we're going to drop another one in there. Ooh, what do we get? 2 critical hits, 2 critical damage, plus the damage, plus the stun. Yeah. So some of them has fixed it. Super Conk didn't fix it, so that's affecting him right now. Neither is the Tortoise, right? It's over. It's too much. It's way too much for the average tanker to have to constantly deal with that from an artillery piece. Constantly being losing modules, constantly losing crew members, taking damage, and then on the top, just to rub it in a little bit more to give them that much. So there's 2 critical to a Tortoise, 1 to the Conk, plus now they're stunned, 1 for 12, 1 for 10, I believe. So they're just going to have to deal with it here. Now this was something I'm talking about why artillery is somewhat needed in the game to counter this, right? Super Conk just completely ate that 277 because of the map. And sometimes, like I said, without a artillery piece, it's hard to counter these tanks, especially if you don't always have the best players in the right tanks in the right spot and all that kind of stuff. Artie is kind of magnifies the amount of firepower in a certain area. So we're outnumbered on this flank, hence why I'm aiming this way. Right? The good Artie player is always watching flanks, always watching the battlefield and paying attention to what's going on. In this situation, these guys are in dire need of help, and that's what I'm providing for them. It's a force multiplier. Maybe that's the best word for it, right? So we've knocked out, once again, did a bunch of damage. These guys are all sitting on stuns. They're pissed. Like I said, they've lost, depending on where it hit and what it did to it. They could have lost complete accuracy. They could have lost all their reload or extended their reload to unbelievable. And I'm firing faster than their med packs and their equipment can reload, right? So they're still going to be hurting no matter what. Got another one coming in here. And like I said, this is a perfect example of... so there was 2 critical damage on the Tort, and I didn't even nail... I wasn't even close to the Tort, right? Plus the stun, right? He's still stunned at 6 seconds, 5 seconds. You just cannot have this much damage. You just cannot have the crew damage. You just cannot have without causing frustration. And I get it as a tanker from this point of view. It is it's a big pain in the ass. So the Wheezy 111 finishes off the Panzer IV, and we are still tied up. However, these guys are just about ready to break through, and there's 20 seconds left. This was a Gores medal for me. This was 4,100 damage, I think, believe it was something like ended up getting after that couple blind shots, specifically to that super conk, to make the difference, and that's what artillery did here. I was the force multiplier in the game and able to help my team pick up the win. So with that said, I want to just, like I said, put down below what you guys think. At least give me an idea what you think about stun. I think it should be removed from the game. I don't think it should be in the game. I think it's just another frustrating thing that pisses people off. So with that said, you guys have a good night, and thanks for watching.